gummy bear.
All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's explain what we do here first. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with Final Fantasy XVI copies are reportedly in the wild a week ahead of release. This comes from Jordan Midler at VGC. Physical copies of Final Fantasy XVI are reportedly in the wild more than a week before the official release, according to several social media users who've begun posting images and details of the game. While retail leaks of modern games are common due to the time required to ship a game to a retail location, the fact that the game is already in players' hands a week early means social media will soon likely be heavily populated with spoilers. So far, the spoilers, which we won't leak to here, are mainly from early on in the game. Naturally, however, as players spend more time with it, spoilers for the later game will start to emerge. Final Fantasy XVI is due out for PS5 on June 22nd. This is mostly a warning, but it's like an interesting case because recently it'd be like, yeah, they're playing it, but there's going to be a day one patch. People are probably going to go slow because it's maybe a miserable experience. This game's not getting a day one patch. It's all solid, ready to go. Everything's on the disc. This is like the version everyone's going to be playing. And some people already have it and they're ready to go. And yeah, I do expect spoilers to begin coming out pretty soon for this game. How about you?
Yeah, I suppose there's two things that I've been thinking about with this, where the first one is do you think there's a small part of the developers or publishers that are moving to digital only that are like, oh, a nice benefit that we get from this is we have more control over these leaks, and every big physical game since God of War Ragnarok seems to have had a physical leak at some point. So it must be at some small bonus that they can get from that, where something. The other thing is it seems like Square Enix are doing a pretty good job at spoiling that game if you can go watch the trailers they're releasing.
Yeah.
I've purposefully stayed away because I really liked the demo way more than I thought I would. And I pre-ordered the game because it's I'll actually play through this. And then people that I know that are reviewing the game were like, do not watch the fucking trailers that they are putting out. So that's the second warning, is don't watch the official communications that they're putting out too.
Yeah, it's the marketing for it has been has gotten more and more aggressive, I think, as they are getting closer. The demo's out now, and I think they're getting more bold with what they're putting in their trailers and their commercials, and that has led to some stuff being oh, that is clearly a major plot point or major twist. This is always going to happen. The PS5 is not in the same situation as the Switch is in, where if a game leaks early on the Switch, yeah, it's out there in spoilers, but then it's going to end up on piracy services very quickly. The PS5's not necessarily been cracked like that quite yet. Hackers have cracked it open to a certain extent, but not to the point where everyone has done it. So yeah, this game's probably actually just going to benefit from this as more people get more excited and can't help but talk about it, because it is, it's a story heavy game, sure, yeah, but I think there's a lot of elements that a lot of Final Fantasy fans are still waiting to hear. Is this going to be for me? The playing as just one character instead of having a party, and other big changes to it. And it's as people get their hands on it, even if it's spoilers, if people are talking excitedly about it, it's probably just going to help it. This feels like a game that has built up a lot of momentum since that demo came out. Have you felt that, Lex?
Yeah, like I said, I played that demo and I went from being not super interested in it at all to being I will play through all of this. And I think the thing that stood out to me is, compared to the time I spent, I think I only have about 5 hours left in Final Fantasy VII Remake. But the time that I spent in that, at some point I actually found that combat system really annoying. That combat system is really good when you're fighting multiple enemies and killing them quickly and jumping between characters and lots of shit is going on. But in the boss fights for Final Fantasy VII Remake, where it's just a health sponge and you're running around these big arenas and you're constantly healing and you're almost always getting one shot and you're pausing and you're trying to figure out your menus, I got really annoyed with the sort of the halfway real-time, halfway turn-based combat, which I think is still an unpopular opinion, but yeah, I way prefer the bit of combat that I did play for 16.
Yeah, that's that Devil May Cry combat looks so kinetic in video. I'm like, I want to get my hands on it. I have the demo downloaded. I've been playing Tears of the Kingdom instead. I'm like, I got to make time for that, and I probably will tonight.
I am super interested to see if it will win people over, like, you or Dan or whoever. Like, Dan has said, he hasn't played that many Final Fantasies, and it's definitely been a while since, I think he talked about playing 10. And I'm curious if this huge new refresh will get that new blood in, or people who have fallen off the series get them back into the series, because it does feel fresh.
Yeah, I think, Final Fantasy VII Remake is one that came out and was like supposed to be this massive return for the series, and it did fine, but it was like 5 million copies sold and you can definitely get the sense that Square Enix wants this to be much bigger, and Final Fantasy 15 did very well, and if this can build on that and sort of take it to the next level, it's primed to get up there and be like one of the top tier best selling games again. But it will have to win over people like Dan, I think. So, yeah. And
I was getting crap. Yeah, I was getting crap that for saying that I hadn't seen any ads for it yet. In the time since I was last on the show, I started seeing bus stops in like rural Ireland with Clive on it, and I'm like, oh, this is weird. Most people have no idea who Clive is.
They've clicked into gear with that stuff, though, for sure. Yeah. Where it's just like they are going very hard. It seems like that's the strategy recently of, we have a big game like Final Fantasy XVI coming, and in the past we would have been doing months and months and months of commercials, and now it's like save it, and now go really hard in that last week or two before it's coming out, and here we are.
Do you think more companies are going to start doing the demos, because those do really seem to be working for Square?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say, because Square Enix just does it for everything, right? They just do it for everything that they're making. They did it for Balan Wonderworld. They're doing it for Final Fantasy 16. They do it for everything. A lot of times it is a carry over your progress. A lot of times this is a very early demo. And what we're doing is we're taking your feedback and we're going to go change some stuff. And they've done that with the Bravely Default games a couple times. So it seems like just an overarching strategy over at Square Enix of like, we do demos for a couple of reasons. And I'm not sure if other companies are going to be like rushing to replicate that, because it's not some global. It
seems like it's part of their workflow.
Yeah, exactly. It seems part of their workflow. But yeah, we'll see. I think that Final Fantasy 16, if we come out of this and it's like a lot of people agree the demo was the thing that turned people around, I bet we do get a handful more demos from the biggest games coming out in the next couple of years. All right, Xbox. This is another headline from like where we got like a bunch of those interviews happen. Like we sat down with Phil Spencer, Matt Booty on the couch, but a lot of people had a chance to talk to these guys, and even Sarah Bond. So there's a handful of headlines.
They made themselves available. They made themselves
super available. And this is another headline from that. 343 will continue to work on Halo, but other studios may get involved. This is from Chris Scullion at VGC. 343 Industries will continue to work on the Halo series going forward, but other studios may get involved in development, it's been suggested. In an interview with Axios, Microsoft's Game Studios chief Matt Booty explained that the team working on Halo Infinite is now notably different from the one that started work on the project, and that this new team is well suited to continue taking the series forward. I feel confident in the leadership team, but the team that got us here is probably not the same team that's going to take us forward, Booty said. After former studio head Bonnie Ross left 343 Industries in September 2022, she was replaced by studio's then head of production, Pierre Hintz. Booty said Hintz's previous success in turning around the disastrous launch of Halo the Master Chief Collection makes him the perfect leader to take Halo where it needs to go in the future. I think that we'll start. There's a little more to the story, but just starting there, that's been like a common thing. I think a lot of these companies are very happy to put people who are good at putting out fires in charge. That's happened over at BioWare, where it's like, hey, the people that turned around Star Wars: The Old Republic and then had was helping out with a bunch of those games that BioWare was having trouble with. they're now just actually in charge of the studio, and maybe by having to deal with those problems over and over again, they can avoid them in the future. Maybe the same is true over at 343. It does sound though like to me, and I don't know if you agree with this, that they've basically cleaned house at 343 and established a new leadership team deliberately. Like that seems to be the purpose of what happened when everyone was leaving that team a few months ago, right?
Yeah, and I think I feel a little bit conflicted about it because the willingness from Microsoft brass to throw some real veterans just kind of under the bus in the way that they talk about the game. You look at Redfall, and like Harvey Smith still worked on that game, and they are very openly being like, "Oh no, Redfall was a bad game, and it wasn't up to standards." And like if I was at one of those studios, and if I was Bonnie Ross or something, and they were out there saying, Halo 4 was a failure or whatever, I'm not surprised that, she maybe left a bit earlier than she was planning on, because, I can't imagine what morale is like in some of those companies where they are being told, okay, your last game just wasn't good enough. I was very reassured by some of the interviews that Phil and Matt gave at Summer Games Fest, especially years like that. They're very good at that. They're very good at talking to people. But then when they've talked about there's just these things that like pop up and they just don't feel great. And the more you think about them, the more you're like, why did this happen? And what was the managerial like thing that allowed it to happen in the way that it did? And then the way that you talk about it afterwards, it might be a bigger thing with video games in general, where developers are, so eager to say sorry after something isn't perfect. We saw that with Gollum, where like they were apologizing just because the game was bad, not because anything was broken, but they were like, "We're sorry, the game is bad. We're not going to fix it anyway." And what does that actually mean at some point? Sorry stops meaning something at some point.
Yeah, I wonder. It's curious because I know that Microsoft, I know that Phil Spencer specifically is very sensitive about how his studios are feeling morale-wise. Because I remember, with the Hi-Fi Rush stuff, that was like they kind of like pinged me and were like, "Hey, we are going to push back against this, just to let you know." And but we're doing it because we're investing heavily in that studio, and we want them to know that we have their back, and there's not some weird stuff going on. So I wonder if when they come out and they're like, Redfall is a miss. Redfall isn't up to our standards. If that's a conversation that like they've had internally with Harvey Smith and Arkane Austin, and like everyone is kind of agrees and everyone's identified the failures in the process, and so they're ready to admit that the game wasn't up to standards across the board, and everyone sort of shared the blame there or something. So it's okay to talk about publicly. We haven't heard that that's exactly what happened, but I do get the sense that that's probably how it goes down in a situation like this. But Halo is maybe it just feels a little bit different than that, where it's just like it feels unresolved in a lot of ways. Where Halo Infinite's a really well-made shooter. It's just not a very well-made modern video game in terms of having to serve content in an ongoing fashion and have a ton of content in its story campaign, or be primed to have a bunch of new story campaign stuff. And that's like that stuff started to feel really sour really quick, and no one really knew what they were doing in terms of getting that stuff sorted. Getting back to the story, Booty definitely said that look at the quality of the Master Chief Collection and know that the core team that did that is doing a lot of the heavy lifting on Halo right now. So going back to like that is the team they want in charge. Marino Chat said the Rod Ferguson guy. Like that's the kind of person that a lot of these teams want in charge now, and that seems to be that type of person seems to be who's in charge now over at 343.
Hopefully more Rod Ferguson than the Benz.
Yes, exactly. A little bit.
A different kind of fixer.
Exactly. Booty then reportedly insisted that 343 will continue to work on Halo, but that other outside studios may get involved too. That's something I've definitely heard. I think it's been reported in a couple places now. And we know that like Certain Affinity is working on some Halo spinoff, probably some kind of battle royale that we'll see. Who knows? I think I was a little surprised we didn't get some tease of it at the Summer Game Fest. But that's something they could do an Apex Legends with, where they just announce it as they're about to release it, and that would be totally fine, I think.
Yeah, and I think when you bring up Halo at the moment and you don't show something fully, if you just tease it, all the questions are going to be negative because people just aren't feeling great about it. So you may as well just hold it.
Yep. Yeah, and the way they did talk about Halo is just like, yeah, we have stuff happening and we're making things happen with that. And it's like, yeah, in vague terms that's fine, but you're right. As soon as you start to get specific, it's that audience is going to let you know that they need stuff now because they are feeling pretty rough today. All right, more headlines out of Xbox in these interviews. Microsoft announces changes to game development in effort to get output closer to par with Nintendo and Sony. This comes from My Nintendo News. News site Axios has chatted with Xbox Game Studio chief Matt Booty to talk about the future of the Xbox brand after a relatively successful showcase last Sunday. Booty told the site that they are adopting longer development cycles and collaborating more with each other after the failure that was Redfall from Arkane Studios. Booty says that these shifts are part of the plan to get Microsoft's gaming output closer to par with the frequent excellence of rivals Sony and Nintendo. I guess I just wonder, Lexi, do you think this is something that they can figure out? Because it's making games like Sony and Nintendo is something you could say, but it does feel like there's a big gap between saying that and then getting there.
Yeah, and when you think about the sort of perfect storms that led to both of those companies' successes, and they're very different types of successes, like Sony's way that it shares resources, Sony's way that it sort of shares knowledge and things is very different to the way that Nintendo has a conveyor belt of games and projects to the point that they have stuff sitting in a warehouse sort of ready to go. And they're two very different ideologies. And so I don't know if you can just look over at someone else's notebook and start figuring it out and start doing the same thing. I think if they are going to replicate one, they're probably going to look at Sony a lot more, because you can't really replicate Nintendo.
That's what feels like.
You can't bet on every game selling 10 million copies. You can't have that reassurance. And yeah, I'd be curious to see not even what they do when it comes to managerial stuff, but what they do when it comes to like a game house style, because people have been saying for a while now, Sony have their house style of AAA story-driven linear games or open world linear stories or whatever. Like Nintendo have their style, which is all of their own, but it really doesn't feel like Microsoft has had much of a footprint in their own unique way. There's very little. When you look at Pentiment, when you look at Hi-Fi Rush, those are great games, but they're not Microsoft games. They're just great games that happen to be developed under the Microsoft wing. So you can clearly see that they aren't sharing resources that much, that they aren't communicating that much, because the things that are great coming out of Microsoft all feel very singular.
Yeah, and I think that can be the advantage of Microsoft to a certain extent. They have Game Pass, so variety can be our strength or whatever. And I think that is there's something to that, but there's definitely something into games being so difficult to create today that if you're not sharing lessons and sharing resources and best practices between all of these studios that you own, you are missing out on a lot. And that, if the result of that is some of these games start to feel more part of a pattern, part of a sort of following a template, I think that is maybe the bad you have to take with the good, because I think that the quality improvements that they could get if they have id showing up on every single project and saying, here's what you can do with your technology and here's what you can do with your shooting. And again, we heard that they are helping out with the visuals on Starfield, maybe not with the shooting actually, but actually with the visuals. So, okay, that's a great start. Share all the best practices, though. We know Sony does that just by looking at these games and saying, oh, that game had a AI control companion and that worked really well, and now all of their games have that, and they just have different variations on that. And it's like, yes, Microsoft should probably be doing the same. So we'll see if that can, if that turns them into on par with Nintendo and Sony, or at least the relatively, frequent excellence, as they put it. At the very least, it's like just increase the quality of your own games in whatever direction that is. I think that is a fine goal unto itself. All right, Xbox first-party studios aren't making new games for Xbox One anymore. This comes from Evan Campbell at GameSpot. Don't expect any new games from Xbox game studios like Fable, Avowed, or Clockwork Revolution to release on Xbox One. Microsoft is reportedly focused on Xbox Series X and S from here on out, other than supporting previously released games on the last-gen system. That's what Xbox Game Studios head Matt Booty told Axios, which noted this changeover was bound to happen at some point. We've moved on to Gen 9. How dare you, Matt Booty? Referring to Xbox Series X and S. Booty added that there are internal teams supporting games on Xbox One still, such as Minecraft. In addition, Halo Infinite is starting to receive more consistent season updates that are continuing to arrive on last-gen consoles. It does finally feel, to me, Lexi, like we have moved on from PS4 and Xbox One for the most part, right?
Yeah, we're definitely into the 9th generation of Xbox consoles. Everyone's saying this. But yeah, I don't know, like some people might argue that Xbox hasn't been making Xbox One games since, let's say, 2016. So, but it is interesting that they have drawn their line in the sand, considering how long they were for how much of the push for the Xbox Series was, hey, don't worry, you'll be able to play all the games on Xbox One for, the foreseeable future. We're now 2.5 years later, foreseeable future's here, and they're like, okay, no, we're done.
Yeah, and it's you're definitely right that it was always that weird thing. Like early on, Microsoft's like, yeah, we're going to keep supporting Xbox One and we're going to do that for 2 years. And then it's like they didn't have many games that actually did that. There was most games that they put out were just like, yeah, this one actually is just Xbox Series X and S. And I wonder if they are feeling like it's pretty easy to leave the Xbox One behind as they are growing on more platforms. They are growing pretty fast on PC, as Phil said. And it's like, well, we don't need to hold on to the Xbox One audience, even if there is some out there. Like, we are growing fast enough in these other areas to more than make up for that. And I wonder if that's actually how it's working out for them. But yeah, go ahead.
Do we know if Starfield is coming to original Xbox Ones?
No, definitely not. No, it is.
Okay,
it's Xbox Series X and S and then PC.
Because I remember seeing the SSD listing for PC, and I was like, how would you make that run on a 2013 console?
The cloud is the answer. Yeah. They make it run on the cloud, which you probably can do that eventually, but maybe at launch you can actually do that on your Xbox One if you wanted to. But that's like your option. I think, though, that looking at the games themselves, they probably are going to benefit here pretty soon from these developers no longer thinking about last gen. They're most of the limitations that these companies have been dealing with has been time and budget. But I think as the developers have become more familiar with Xbox Series X and S or PS5 or modern PC architectures, they are likely to be like, hey, we have a lot more CPU overhead. We can maybe do some more stuff with that. And it feels like Starfield might be a real kickoff for some of those things where it's like, this feels like a real new gen experience in some key ways. At least that's my hope. Do you have high hopes for as we get past this cross-gen, this extended cross-gen period, that we'll see some major improvements in games from places we weren't expecting?
Yeah, I'm curious. There's two things I'm curious about. One is, will this sort of kick into gear a lot of the third-party publishers stopping bringing their games to previous-gen consoles? The other thing is, we saw a lot of people really enjoy the fact that games were running at 60 frames per second on these new consoles. And now that we're, actually moving into the new generation fully, and games are exclusive to that console, it's like, okay, no, we're going back down to 30. And that... I get it. Everyone gets it. Well, not crazy people on the internet get it. Normal people get it, that this is just how technology works, and we were sold a $500 box, and there's only so much that can do. But yeah, it doesn't feel great when your next gen games, your games that are really pushing the boundaries, are back down to 30. And I'm wondering if that will be almost across the board. What are the major AAA games from first-party studios? Will the next Naughty Dog game be a 30 frames per second game?
Yes.
Is kind of the benchmark for me in my head of, will those big first-party games all go down to 30 again?
Yeah, and it feels like that we're moving in that direction. I won't be surprised either way. Some of these studios have gotten really good at 60 frames per second. I think through the end of this generation, I think that Insomniac's games will have a performance mode that likely run at 60 frames per second, almost no matter what. But I also don't think they are going to deviate in any major way from the kinds of games they've been making. I think they're going to make Spider-Man 2, Wolverine, those games are going to be successors to Spider-Man, and I think that studio knows how to get that kind of game to feel content complete for, and justify $70 while also being super performant and not overwhelming the system that they're making the game for. So I think we're going to be getting 60 frames per second from a lot of games still, but it's as some of these studios like get past this early 3-year cross-gen period, I think many of them are going to choose 30 frames per second because we could do so much more with visuals and density and things like that. All right, final one from this series of Xbox headlines. Microsoft is not planning to shut Redfall studio Arkane Austin. This comes from Tom Ivan at VGC. Microsoft currently has no plans to close Redfall developer Arkane Austin. That's according to Xbox Game Studios boss Matt Booty, who was asked by Axios if the studio will remain open following Redfall's disappointing launch. That is the plan right now, he responded. They are hard at work on updates and continued content for Redfall. I think people are focusing, Lex, on that right now part of that. I'll say that Matt Booty, he oversees this a little bit, but this is a Bethesda studio, and he's not in charge of Bethesda studios. He's in charge of Xbox Game Studios teams, and there is a division there. So it's like he only has so much say over that anyhow. But when asked, he said, yeah, they're staying open for now, and that doesn't feel great, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, I better hope they're not fucking closing them down after one bad game.
Right.
Like, you look at what Austin has done, some of the best immersive sims in a long, long time. And, we all read the Schreier report where they had a huge turnover. So you do worry that it is a completely different studio now. But, like, if you have that little faith in the companies under you, that's worrying. If you're like, okay, one bad game, fuck it, like, cut them all. We'll buy someone else new and hope they make a good game this time. Like, that's not sustainable.
Not at all.
So yeah, you have to imagine that they have to make it work, especially when you have a studio that has as much history, and like, even if 40% of the people are left, there's still a lot of talent in those 40% of the people. Like, those people worked on some of the best games of the last generation. You'd expect that Microsoft would be interested in nurturing that if they do want a diverse and healthy slate of games.
Yeah, and they said they're going to keep it open. I think that they are going to let their teams make missteps and come back and try again. I think maybe the tougher question is, are they going to be able to retain talent at a studio like that after a situation like this? And hopefully they could figure it out. Hopefully they could treat those people with enough dignity and respect that they want to stick around and have another go at it.
And the state of Texas can too.
Yes, well, state of Texas, a whole other matter. Yep.
Yeah.
Rockstar co-founder Dan Hauser debuts new media company Absurd Ventures. This comes from Jordan Midler at VGC. Following the news in 2021 that ex-Rockstar boss has incorporated a new company in various regions, Hauser has officially debuted Absurd Ventures, which will, quote, create new IP across all platforms and for all formats. We are building Absurd Ventures to create new universes and to tell great stories wherever and however we can, said Hauser in a prepared statement. Alongside this announcement, the new company has launched absurdventures.com, where users can register to receive exclusive content and company updates. Parent company Take-Two announced in February 2020 that Hauser was set to leave Rockstar on March 11th, 2020, following an extended break beginning in the spring of 2019. The British writer, producer, and voice actor co-founded Rockstar in 1998, alongside his brother Sam, Terry Donovan, and Jamie King. Dan Hauser was a key figure behind many of the company's most successful titles, having written or co-written almost all the games in the Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead Redemption series, as well as Bully and Max Payne 3. This is, I mean, a weird one. I guess, of course, these companies are going to keep happening. There's a lot of money out there. Sam Hauser has a lot of money, or excuse me, Dan Hauser has a lot of money. It is, but it's like, what are we supposed to do with this information? Because kind of how I feel. Like, yeah, you're going to go make games. Of course you are. Like what? But I guess they got
not even that. They're going to make ideas and shit like that. Like they're going to make things in all different media formats. Like, we have no idea what this company actually is. Like, are they a game developer? Are they a publisher? Are they fucking making audiobooks? Because they like mentioned fucking like all these different mixed media formats. Like, what are you doing? And if you aren't going to tell us what you're doing, why are you being so loud?
Yeah, it feels like when like someone's like, I want to be a game developer, and then they're like, okay, well, what do you want to do? Well, I want to be the idea person. I just want to come up with the ideas, and someone else does all the work. And it's like, well, that's not how it works. It seems like Hauser here has made a company where that's exactly how he hopes it's going to work. Like they come up with the ideas, and then they work with probably external studios to make games and film and whatever else, and concept albums for Spotify. I don't fucking know.
It does sound like weirdly similar to the like pitch for everything before they like actually explained what everything was, where they're like, we're making everything. We're making concepts, and we're making games, and we're making multimedia platforms. And it's like, fuck you doing?
Yeah. And I mean, in Leslie Benzies' case, which is Leslie Benzies left to make People Can Fly, Build a Rocket Boy back in 2017, which is making everything. In Benzies' case, he was the person that sort of spearheaded GTA Online, while the Hausers were like, we're working on the real game. We don't give a shit about that. And then all of a sudden, GTA Online took off and became this massive thing. And then everyone was like, well, that's what GTA is now from now on. So it's like, okay, you could take some of that lineage. Obviously, there's a lot of people who just love Grand Theft Auto for being Grand Theft Auto and not necessarily the online portion, and you could build on that. But I definitely think a big company like this, and taking a lot of, probably venture capital or whatever to get started, likely is pitching themselves as, we are the people that made GTA Online, and we could do that again. And it's like, I don't know how replicable that actually is. Even Rockstar struggled to replicate it with Red Dead Online too. So, yeah, we'll see. Twitch's new partner program will finally give streamers a 70-30 cut of the revenue pie. This comes from Darren Bonthus at GameSpot. Twitch has unveiled its new partner program, which for qualifying members will offer them a new, more lucrative slice of the revenue pie. The new partner program will offer a 70-30 revenue share to streamers, as opposed to the 50-50 model that has been in place for several years. This new program will roll out from October 1st, but it comes with a high requirement for streamers. Partners must maintain a sub count of at least 350 recurring paid subscriptions for 3 consecutive months to be automatically enrolled in the program for 12 months. The good news is that even if a partner dips below that threshold, they still remain in the program during that 12-month period. Okay, yeah. I mean, this almost feels like one of those things. So it's like, why are you even telling most people about this? Is this supposed to be a PR win for Twitch? I can't tell.
Yeah, I think I'm probably the wrong person to talk about this because I'm not a Twitch streamer. I'm a writer or whatever. And I'm curious to hear more your thoughts and other people at GB. But it seems like at some point, sort of like the discussion we had with 60 frames per second or whatever, but the number 70-30 became a vocal point. And having that, something that they can churn out and say, no, we have a 70-30 split too, sounds like a win for them, even if it's only for the top 1%. I know a lot of my friends who are much smaller streamers who we've rated here, this doesn't help them. They're still not going to make any fucking money off of Twitch. And Twitch is perfectly happy to keep on taking half of their money, which is still just when you think about it, is a ridiculous number. So, yeah, I don't know. Twitch seems like it is in the phase where people haven't decided it seems like it's in a similar space to Twitter, where everyone wants out, but no one knows where to go.
Yeah, it's there's not really a lot of other viable platforms, obviously. It's but then Twitch is floundering. I don't think Twitch is making much money, if any money at all. So this is why it explains a lot of their erratic behavior and why they seem to be so standoffish to creators, because we got to take some of your money if we're gonna make money. And yet, I mean, this is how they do it. This is similar to what Steam did when Epic was breathing down their throat, breathing down their neck about a lot of the big split for developers, where Epic's like, we're gonna do 88-12. We're only gonna take 12%. Steam takes 30%. Isn't that a lot? And then Valve was like, if you make $10 million or $100 million, whatever it is, we'll do an 80-20, whatever. And there's a tier thing. And so, okay. So for the biggest of the big, they are going to get the benefit of this, and it sort of leaves everyone else out in the cold. But it's those big ones are the ones that move the needle. Those are the ones that actually matter to these platforms. And so it's not too surprising that they're trying to keep them happy. I wonder if this is actually going to have any real effect on that. I mean, more money is always going to help, but it's not. I think the Twitch's current PR problem and sort of morale problem in the community is deeper than just solving the problem of the top 1%, which, I think 350 subscribers is a lot, especially per month. And I know that's like, if you have like 100 subscribers, you're pretty high up there. I think 350 subscribers probably is like the top 1%, right?
Yeah. It is kind of weird. This year feels like a day of reckoning for a lot of venture capital investments, whether it be NFTs, whether it be Twitch sort of realizing like that it can't just keep on bringing like spending money. And even you look at esports, there was a good report that went up on PC Gamer this morning that was basically saying like, hey, pretty much like every North American esports team is broke. And you see that where you look at the teams in the Overwatch League, because that's just the one esport I actually keep up with. One of the Asian region teams, the Chengdu Hunters, just didn't enter any players this year for the league. And they were like, we're out. We're done. Fucking, that's all. Yep. And it does seem like a lot of these houses of cards are like starting to crumble as people realize that you can't just always be investing. At some point, you need to produce the money yourself. You need to generate the revenue yourself. You can't just wait for more people to give you money.
I mean, that's the exact story of the Embracer Group, which just was taking that endless money that which they were especially benefiting from being in Europe, where there was a lot of money and not a lot of obvious investments on the table. Embracer Group's like, we'll take this European money, we'll take it elsewhere. And then as soon as that spigot got turned off, it was bad news all around, and we obviously saw the fallout of that.
That's actually the perfect example, because I think I was talking about this yesterday with a friend, and it reminded me of a tweet that Reb Valentine put up at Gamescom, where they were on one of the floors on the Gamescom floor, and they were like, every single one of these separate booths in the business area, as you pan around and look around this entire floor, is a different Embracer Group publisher. Why didn't they just have an Embracer Group booth? Why didn't they just buy one? And it's like that, again, is one of those things where we were talking about they didn't have the oversight. They didn't plan long-term for that company. So yeah, I think there's a lot of companies that are going to realize a lot of tough shit over the next while, and then people are going to suffer because of it.
Do you think there's any chance that like Amazon could get out of the Twitch business? Like just sells it off to Saudi Arabia or something like that?
I know, because who would buy it? Who wants to basically, like, hosting things on the internet is expensive. Hosting YouTube, like hosting any amount of video on demand content is really expensive, and hosting live streams is expensive. Who wants to buy all of that right now?
Yeah.
So unless they sell it to like Kick or something, they'll buy anything.
Right. Exactly. I think it'd be. That's why Saudi Arabia was my example. I think it would probably go to even less reputable company than Amazon, which they exist. All right.
Which, there was actually at Gamescom as well, there was a floor, there was a different floor, which was Amazon Web Services, Unity, Bloober Team, and Cloudflare. And I was like, oh, this is the cool kid corner.
Yeah,
this is where all the popular people
Let's fucking go! Metaphor ReFantazio confirmed for PlayStation alongside Xbox and PC. This comes from George Yang at GameSpot. Metaphor ReFantazio, Atlas's new fantasy IP, is coming to PlayStation alongside its previously revealed Xbox Series X and S and PC versions. This comes from a now deleted tweet from SEGA Korea, where the company posted a multi-platform trailer. In the end, it shows the Xbox Series X and S, PS4, PS5, Steam, and Windows PC logos. Metaphor ReFantazio was first revealed during the 2023 Xbox Game Showcase, but was only confirmed for Xbox and PC. I know there was like a lot of like going around about this game. It's like, is it exclusive to Xbox? And I asked Sega Atlas about this. I don't know if they got back to me because I saw this story first, but this sounds right. Xbox doesn't actually do a lot of those, hey, let's actually pay for timed exclusivity anymore. They just pay for you to come on Game Pass. But yeah, this isn't too surprising, right?
Yeah, and I think even if JRPGs just don't sell what they would need to on their own on only the Xbox.
Right, yes.
And it just wouldn't make a whole lot of sense for Atlas. And, like, I'm super excited for this game. It looks stunning. I think the stuff that Iman said on the couch about the creative director and his questionable way of writing queer characters was very interesting, and I definitely agree with. And so, yeah, I'm curious how this game actually shapes up. But like Atlas are really hard to get a straight answer out of on anything.
Yes, definitely.
Whether it be from a pure point of view of us asking for codes directly to some poor PR person who isn't being told anything by the publisher, to like Atlas itself communicating with fans, it has always been very difficult to figure out what that company is actually doing.
Yep, absolutely. Last handful of stories here. Nintendo expands Switch Online's GBA library next week with Fire Emblem. This comes from Liam Doolin at Nintendo Life. Nintendo has announced the 2003 Game Boy Advance release Fire Emblem will be coming to the Nintendo Switch Online service next week on June 23rd. This tactical RPG is also known as Fire Emblem: The Blazing Blade and will be available to everyone who has access to the expansion pack tier, which is the $50 per year version of Nintendo Switch Online. This entry was the first installment in the series to be released outside of Japan, and also featured the debut of Lyn, who also happens to appear as the emblem of blazing in the new Switch release Fire Emblem Engage. There's permadeath in this game too. Here's a bit more about this classic. Blah blah blah. This is cool. I like Fire Emblem. I have definitely played this a little bit before. I haven't played it a ton. I first got into Fire Emblem in a big way with Awakening. But I've always had fun going back to these games when I have. In Japan, they're also getting The Binding Blade, which is a prequel, released for this game later. But we're not getting that. We're just getting The Blazing Blade. I don't think they ever localized The Binding Blade. But yeah, you a Fire Emblem fan?
I am friends with some very big Fire Emblem fans who are losing their shish. The same people who constantly tell me to play Tales of Arise or the Tales games and the Trials games. And then I get confused as to what the fuck Legends of Heroes is. And I'm like, guys, this is too much.
It's too much.
There's too many series, and they're too long, and they're too interconnected, and I don't know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
We just bring back Advance Wars.
Just go back and start the Shin Megami Tensei series from the beginning, and then play the Virtual Boy game. It was no, I can't remember the name of it. But this is cool. I still kind of am pretty happy with Nintendo Switch Online. I would like more games more frequently, but I've always wanted that from Nintendo's, classic game support on their console. And Fire Emblem is a cool one. I'm glad we're getting it.
We really didn't realize just how good we had it with the Virtual Console.
Yes, yeah. The Virtual Console was actually pretty good in hindsight. It obviously encouraged them to put a wider variety of games than they're putting on Nintendo Switch Online. And Jack Brothers is the game I was thinking of. Thank you, Dresh and Feast of Violet. That's right. SEGA just made Sonic cooler. This comes from Michael McWhorter at Polygon, who should be tried for this headline. The Sonic cooler, officially the Sonic the Hedgehog Green Hill Zone Little Playmate 7 quart cooler, comes from Igloo, longtime maker of coolers, and it's available now for $40. And I got a picture of this thing I should just bring up. There we go. There you go, everybody. It's just a decal of Green Hill Zone with Sonic on it on top of an Igloo cooler, and I want one because I'm sick.
This is why we mock Sonic fans, because this is gonna fucking sell.
Yes, absolutely. Oh man! And again, that headline was SEGA just made Sonic cooler. That's
and I would just like to take this opportunity to say on video, because I've only said it I've said it on websites I've written for, I've said it on Twitter. There has never been a good Sonic game. They are all bad. None of them are fun to play. They all feel like shit to control. The music isn't that good. The music isn't that good.
Oh, the music is good. The music is good. Listen,
I like Supersonic Racing as much as the next person. The rest of Crush 40's catalog is extremely questionable.
Listen, Crush 40, I could take. Well, listen, I'm fine with Crush 40 and all that music. The no lyric Sonic music, though, Sonic 2's entire OST, and honestly, a lot of the 16-bit ones are very, very good. But I did play Sonic Superstars and was reminded, man, this game just doesn't. It's just not fun to play. they don't care if it's fun to play.
That's not Oz's magic.
Yes, well, even because they're like, oh, we're just using the same physics from the previous games. Just core Sonic stuff. Just not fun. Not for me. Not for me at all.
Precision platformers that are way too quick. Doesn't feel good.
Exactly. Yes, and it's like the floaty. I'm not going to complain about Sonic anymore. People have heard it before. Illumination denies rumors that it is making a Zelda movie. This comes from Marcus Persson at Game Reactor. Following the colossal success of the Super Mario Bros. Movie, there has been much speculation about which Nintendo game series would be the next to be adapted for the big screen. Just last week, it was even claimed to be confirmed that Illumination started planning an animated movie based on The Legend of Zelda, something that studio head Chris Meledandri is now firmly shooting down in an interview with The Warp. I don't know where that came from. I mean, I can understand how people could have surmised all sorts of things because obviously we've had a great experience working together. My relationship with Nintendo now includes being on their board of directors, so I understand how people can surmise these things. But in terms of the specifics, that was just something that I've been hearing lots of reports. This is just about what's next between Nintendo and Illumination. So it seems like he's like denying it at the very least. Also, I think even if they made a deal to work on one, that's not going to be the next thing. They're going to just do Luigi's Mansion movie, the Super Mario Brothers 2. Things like that. They'll go easy before jumping in all in on Zelda, and they'll take their time on that, I think. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, I mean, we got Iron Man 1 and 2 before we got the Avengers, and that's why that franchise worked, and the DC stuff that jumped straight into, like, let's have our crossovers, let's have everything going all at once. Like, that's why that never properly got going, in a way that people enjoyed. I super hope that they are not making the Zelda movie if there is one planned. I don't mind Illumination. Like, that movie was fine. I enjoyed the original soundtrack. I enjoyed the licensed soundtrack much less. It was kind of like eating celery, where you were losing more calories than you were gaining by eating it.
I'll say that I agree, but my kid's just like, no, Take On Me, that's video game music. It was in a video game movie. What are you talking about? It's the first time she's ever been introduced to it. Now, hearing her sing...
it was in The Last of Us, though, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, hearing her sing Take On Me is very cute. So I'm like, whatever. I'm like mostly over all that stuff. But the original, like, video game-inspired soundtrack was incredible. They did a really good job with that. We can only have so much faith in Illumination, like you're getting at. It's just, they can make these family, very safe films that don't have to say much. And I suppose a Zelda movie doesn't need to say much, but I just don't know how like adventurous an Illumination film can even feel. They're just supposed to feel silly, and that's it. Like the adventurous stuff in the Mario movie kind of only half worked. None of it was great.
They're not full of wonder and magic. They're just kind of like, they're fun romps and they're great for kids.
Yeah, they're cute cotton candy. Yeah.
Yeah, even if Ghibli didn't take it on, I would really appreciate, and I think it's a more Nintendo thing to do, to allow other studios take a crack at their IP rather than just go, okay, we're only going to make this one type of movie from now on. I don't know. I like to think that Nintendo still has some bit of like self-awareness that they did the Crypt of the Necrodancer thing. I like to think that is still a possibility that they will rent out their IPs to more people more freely. That might just be wishful thinking, though.
Yeah, I know what you mean, though. But we'll see. At the very least, I'm very excited to get more movies based on the Nintendo property because my kids are really into it. And it's been really fun. They've been watching that Mario movie over and over. We got the DVD from Dollar General 2 weeks early, and we watch that on repeat every time we go anywhere. And I'm fine with that. It's fun for that. For those purposes, it's great. All right, let's get to the poll from yesterday. I asked everybody, are you planning on getting an Xbox for Starfield? Only 7% said yes. 34% say I'll just play on PC or on the cloud. 16% say no, I'm not interested in it. And 43% say I already have an Xbox. And I think for as much excitement as we've seen from Starfield or for Starfield and from the audience, I think this is probably right. And this speaks to kind of what Phil Spencer said way back in that interview with Kind of Funny, where it's really hard to move the needle with any one game. Although this, 7% saying they're buying something for any one game is actually a pretty big number when you really think about it. That could be, several 100,000 consoles if this were to apply to the entire gaming community. So I don't know. Do you expect the Starfield excitement to keep building in such a way that Xboxes are going to sell like very well this holiday?
I mean, like, I think the Bethesda games are definitely in a different league to everything else. My brother was literally talking to me this morning or this afternoon about, like, maybe I will get one of the Series S's just to play the next Bethesda game, because there is, whether it be nostalgia for the older games or whether it be just because no one quite makes a game like them, for better and worse, there is that allure. And it is a system seller. Or it has the potential to be a system seller.
Yeah, and I think 7%. I think that is selling systems. If that number again is writ large, I think we'll see that. Eamon Goldie says, like, Hogwarts sold PS5s. Can't see why Starfield couldn't do the same. I think it will. I think it absolutely will. And I think for the rest of this poll of, like, I'm just gonna play it on PC or the cloud. That's also a big win for them. Like, that's Microsoft's just as happy if you do that. They're not gonna mind too much. All right, I'm gonna come up with a new poll. While I do that, Lexi, why don't you tell people where they can find you, what you have going on, things like that.
So I'm Lexi Luddy. You can find me on Twitter at basically Lexi with 2 I's in there. You can find the website that I run, Start Menu, the Start Menu. We are a website for young and upcoming journalists to help them break into the industry and get used to working with an editor and find opportunities. We are an extremely professional outfit, which is why our profile picture on Twitter is currently Ichiban Kasuga naked on a beach. We're celebrating Pride. Okay. I'll be at Gamescom this year. I'll be at Develop in a couple of months. If you'll be at either of those, hit me up and let me know. You can find me in places like Play Magazine and freelancing around the place. I'm shitposting mainly at the moment.
Speaking of shitposting, the poll for Tuesday, or actually Wednesday, because we'll have a bombcast on Tuesday. So another little small break here, everybody, but we'll get back into it on Wednesday. The poll is going to be, has there ever been a good Sonic game? There you go. There it is. The responses will be yes, no, and Jeff, come on.
I'm so sorry for your mentions. This is like the second time I've ruined your mentions.
I'm doing this one on the Giant Bomb YouTube page, so I don't have to deal with it. That's for Jan to deal with. Hell yeah, let's fucking go. Yes, the poll will go up on youtube.com/@giantbomb/community. Just the community tab on our YouTube page. Jan will get that posted. He's out on assignment today, so we'll get to that eventually. I actually don't have, even though I'm like a manager of the page, it won't let me post polls. YouTube should fix that, because that's pretty fucking stupid. All right, Lexi, thank you so much for spending today talking with me about video games. I deeply appreciate it.
Yeah, it's always a blast. And I know it's been said before, but you really did a fantastic job with the couch this year.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You have earned your long weekend. Enjoy it. And hopefully you'll get to do it again. Yep.
The truth, I'll keep saying it, is there's so many cool people in the industry. It's very easy to put together some awesome couches. It was just very easy to be like, that person's cool, they should come hang out. And when they say yes, it's like, well, I just feel lucky because they want to come hang out with us. So yeah, it was really fun, and I can't wait to do it again. Actually, that's the honest truth. It's like, it was really important to me to do it, and it went great, and I can't wait to do it again. So thanks for saying that. Appreciate it. Thanks again for hanging out. Thank you to everybody for watching. You really are the best audience in gaming. And it means a lot, everything everyone said this week. So let's carry that momentum forward and keep doing some fun stuff over on Giant Bomb. Until next time, though, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye.